Chapter 12, Mama's Love. The calamity that ensued behind the death of Biggie shook the East Coast. It rocked me as well. Sean could have stopped it. He was complicit in it. He was a contributor. He knew what was going to happen and he didn't stop it. And this was his friend. No, they weren't nearly as close as Sean could have would have the public believe, but still, as far as Sean was concerned, they were great. To the public, they were just having an off and on relationship like a normal couple. I probably just seemed to be a money hungry girl. But the truth is, I just gotten used to not having a choice. Today, I recognize that it was a Stockholm syndrome. I was at his beck and call, and I had to be comfortable with it. Quincy had everything he could ever want, with the exception, of course, of a normal parental figure. That was the chapter that was so powerful for me. The mother's love is so real. One night, I was out with my boyfriend. Yes, we were on again. And he joined me for dinner, and we were joined by dinner than none other than Mrs. Wallace. Sean looked over as security allowed Miss Wallace to approach the table and sit. Miss Wallace spoke with me. Hello, Sean. Hi, Kim. The best smile I could. I smiled the best smile I could. What a situation. For all intents and purposes, she is sitting with her son's killer. I hope my voice didn't betray my feelings as I said, Hi, Miss Wallace. Sean smiled also, and he said, Hello, Miss Wallace. What can I do for you? When I got your call, it sounded urgent. He was able to appear as if he was smiling warmly. This was the creepiest situation of my life. She looked at Sean with pleading eyes. I know this isn't your problem, but things have gotten hard. I was hoping that you could send some of the money that Chris made with you this way. Sean shook his head. That's not something I can just do. There are attorneys and accountants. Can I maybe help you with a little something to get you past the hump? Sean reached into his pocket and digged for his wallet. I haven't seen how much Chris has left. It's going to be on 2 years. It's just how long these things are going to take. Sean sighed as he replied. These things are difficult, Miss Wallace. I don't know. The attorneys don't make it easy. Miss Wallace pushed further. I don't understand what's so difficult. He worked for you. He made his money. Where is it? Sean shook his head and saddened by what he was saying as he continued. It's not that I can just give you his money. You're entitled to certain amounts, and they're trying to figure out what that amount is. I don't mean to sound cruel, but it wouldn't be fair to me if I just give you tons of money. You got rich off my son, and now you're keeping all this money? Sean kept his cool and replied, I'm afraid business isn't that cut and dry, Miss Wallace. I paid for publishing, publicity, and I mean in all actuality, if I'm going to be straightforward, Miss Wallace, Chris probably owed me money. I won't know until this is all worked out. The anger in Miss Wallace's voice barely overshadowed the pain, and perhaps it magnified as she uttered the only words she could muster. You bastard. Sean didn't flinch. He just said, Look at the contract. I am honestly trying to get him as much as possible out of it, but I have investors. I can't just take money that doesn't belong to him and start giving it away. Miss Wallace exploded in her response. You know good and well Chris doesn't owe you anything. Sean stared at her in the eye with an unwaveringly and said, You should have started making, he would have started making a profit a few years, his money until the album sales paid for the studio time, music videos, publishing, and marketing. It would have come from his shows. I'm sorry. It isn't here to make that money. I miss him. Her response was deadpan. Did you kill my son? Momentarily, Sean was stunned into silence. She asked again, with her voice quivering. Did you? He started. Miss Wallace. She would not be redirected. Answer the question. I was not used to seeing Sean on the defensive. No, of course not. She looked at him with spite and anger in her voice, enough to send shivers up my spine as she replied with menace only a mother can. I don't believe you, Sean. Sean looked at her with sadness, and I knew in my soul to be fake. Although looking at him without context, anyone would believe him, he replied, I'm sorry to hear that. Today I know he was not able to muster that fake insecurity. I'm sorry, he was not. Today I know he was able to muster that false sincerity because he's a sociopath. Back then, I thought it was compassion. No more words. Miss Wallace stood up and left. Sean watched her exit with disbelief. Not knowing what to do, I placed my order. Dinner that night was long and silent. I feared for Miss Wallace's life. Sean is the most dangerous when he feels threatened. No, she could not physically threaten him, but his threats were very real. If she goes public with her accusations, Sean's image could be damaged. I have felt for myself with the extents he will go through in order to protect his image. Ooh, that's the end of chapter 12, and we will see you next time. And off to chapter 13. Have some faith. The fact of the matter is, Sean was a complete control freak. He was the absolute worst. But above all things he did control, this might have been one of the most despicable ones. We were in the bad boy office one evening, sitting in the lounge area, enjoying a meal. Sean was smoking one of those big cigars that he liked when Faith entered and sat down with us. She seemed relaxed and she said, "Hey guys." I smiled. I never had any bad vibe from the marvelous Faith Evans. We never talked about the wild times the three of us had shared at one of Sean's parties. I gave her a hug. "Hey girl, what's up?" Sean smiled and I continued and asked, "Hey, what brings you out?" She addressed Sean saying, "Look, when you asked me to hook up with Chris, I understood. You needed to control him, and I felt honored that you would have chose me to monitor one of your most valuable assets. Chris is sweet." Sean laughed and said, "Honestly, I knew you would be good. Make the big man feel loved. I don't feel good about this at all, Sean." Sean got up and with a look in his eyes he gets before he blows his top. Faith saw it also. She treaded carefully. "Sean, you know Sean, you know I'm as loyal as they come." Sean leaned forward, unintentionally threatening, and said in a low tone, "Yeah. But Sean, Chris and I had a child together." Sean leaned back. He let out a deep breath. "And I'm gonna take care of you. You're not like Chris. You're loyal." Faith had a tear in her eye as she responded, "He didn't have to die." This was getting very touchy. Did she know? Did she suspect? Was this her trying to find out if Sean intentionally unalived Biggie? I wanted to ask, but of course there was no way of doing it. This is so crazy. Sean sighed and replied, "He didn't. Don't get me wrong. I miss him. But he was leaving me anyway. No one cares about my pain." Classic narcissistic Sean. It's all about him. I was sickened for a moment. But his next sentence made me feel for him anyway. I wanted to share all of this with him. He was my man. Faith couldn't hide the anger that flared in her eyes, but she knew who she was talking to. She was careful as she spoke. "Sean, you have friends that Sean, you have your friends you share things with." Sean sat forward again, and this time this malicious intent as he queried, "What is that supposed to mean?" Sean had no one, only you. And Sean lost it. That fat person, that other piece of poop I had, oh my goodness. Let me try to sum this up a little better. That big guy and that other dude that I had you sleep with, I interjected while in shock. "You had her mess with Pac?" Sean glared at me and he answered, "Yes, messing with Pac. Those MFers were trying to get to start their own label and compete with me. Me! After all I did for that fat person. No, I was using resources to protect that mother effer. No effing way. As Faith started to cry, Sean looked at her and softened lightly. He spoke a little calmer. Look, I didn't hate him. I was hurt. But I didn't hate him. Look, I'll make sure you and little CJ are well taken care of. Without words, Faith got up to leave. As she turned, Sean spoke softly. Faith. She ignored him. He called out to her again. Faith. She exited quickly. Sean looked at me. Dang. I really didn't know what to say. Sean had just told Faith that he wouldn't protect her husband because he was going to leave Bad Boy. And from a business perspective, I didn't agree with Sean there. If you were leaving and created competition for him, why would he spend resources on you? So I hugged Sean, and I also knew that he didn't have to send Chris to California. I wondered if he had realized that he had sentenced him to death. He hugged me back with tears in his eyes, and he asked, how am I the bad guy? Huh? What did I didn't do nothing but work my tail off to make everyone live comfortably, and I'm supposed to just let these dudes walk all over me? I held him in a comforting embrace and replied, no, baby, as he took me right there on the couch. Like I said, Stockholm Syndrome. And that's the end of chapter 13. See you next time.